The DMPC allows that kind of conversation starters, and they can start asking questions of everybody. They can start giving knowledge about the area that they're in. The only question I would have, are there any good tips for making players roleplay with each other? Like they'll go ham out on an NPC, but trying to get a dynamic going inside of the party is the equivalent of showing a spoon into my eyeball. Oh,
that's such a tough one because...
yeah, I'll let Tim start this one because he is a player in all of my campaigns.
Yeah, that's a tough one because we run into that as well sometimes, and one of the things, yes, but one of the things that that she does that helps is she has interesting DM NPCs that join the party, and sometimes having a character that can join the party and drive conversation helps a lot when you have parties like that. I don't know if I'd recommend doing that for every party that plays D&D. But if you're playing, yeah, if it's a big party, but if you're playing a game where people are having a hard time working with each other, maybe try inventing a character that you play that's just there to drive narrative, that doesn't have good stat blocks or any of that, that's interesting, that they'll want to interact with together. It's hard, but there aren't that many other ways to really get that to work without, you know, a confrontation. Even then, you can't force people to enjoy talking to one another. So it's tough. That's a tough.
I am a big fan, even in larger parties, it just plays a smaller role, of having a DM NPC. The DM NPC allows that kind of conversation starters, and they can start asking questions of everybody. They can start giving knowledge about the area that they're in. There isn't one in this game yet in our campaign on Mondays, only because they haven't chosen one, we'll put it that way. Not that I'm going to give them a full DM NPC to have at all times, but it is something that they can, they have an option to do if they do so choose. But that's also a conversation that we had very, very early on, even before session 0, because I had one in last campaign. Her name was Sela, and
favorite or player favorite.
Yeah, player favorite. And she, even though she was there to help them, most of her personality was, nope. That's just a big nope. There's nothing here that we need to do. You see all of this? This is death. It's imminent death. That was her. So but she was an older elf, and she had a lot of knowledge about certain areas. It may not have been knowledge that would have been super useful, but it is knowledge. It's travel knowledge. But 100%, if they're going somewhere, have them run into a lone mercenary who doesn't seem to have any jobs at that very moment, and that person starts asking questions like, "Hey, I don't have a job right now. Can I join in?"
I would just say make it something fun that the group would want to interact. So it may take some time to come up with. But I don't know, some groups get really weird about that. So it needs to be like obviously really apparent that it's there to drive narrative and not to upend their playing. Because what you don't want to do is have a DM NPC that people feel like is better than they are as the player.
Exactly. So, and it doesn't have to be, they don't have to have any stat blocks. I mean, that's perfect. That's exactly what you need. And the reason, it's all just about getting the conversation started. And even if that group needs somebody like that throughout the campaign, that's okay. Bounce off of? Yes, exactly. And for some reason, it may be because the DM does so much talking, it's much easier for the players to interact with the DM than it is to interact with each other. They know that their characters have developed friendships or relationships, but it's still not easy for them to work that out. I'm very lucky that my husband and one of his best friends are my players, and we have a very small game, so conversation comes much more naturally. When you have multiple players, it becomes a little bit more difficult because either people want to give each other time, or there's conflicts of interest in, like, as a character or even as a player. There's all those kinds of things. But if you do have an NPC who is a follower of theirs, or, you know, is just there for a ride for a while, and they do get into combat, have that person help, but don't unbalance action economy too much. Just give them one action. They can have one attack, and then they can take a bonus action to help, or just one or the other. That's all they do. Like, maybe they trip, you know, they're being attacked by bandits. We'll just go very simply, right? They're being attacked by bandits, and the one person that they picked up maybe trips the bandit, so they're knocked prone, or something like that. Just whatever it is. You just don't want to give them a full character sheet or a full stat block, because you're already going to be managing too much anyway. Just give them a good personality. That's really what it is. They just need to have a good personality, and I think we had talked about that. Who's all here? I can't remember who all was here last week, but we had talked about, like, the one thing that you need to make NPCs interesting, and it's a single personality trait. That's all it is. Just give them one really, really strong personality trait, good or bad, and there you go. They'll love them. Trust me. They'll love or hate them, or both.
But either way, even if they hate them, it's at least a conversation piece.
Exactly.